Why exactly do you think we need a mortgage broker?
Your thinking is not wrong, but it's not right either.
Will I get a special rate of interest? I go to a mortgage broker.
Sometimes mortgage brokers get special deals.
Would a mortgage broker be able to do that for me?
Good question, Pradesh.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Mortgages. And today we'll be cracking the code of who mortgage brokers are, do we really need them, and what is this big deal about artificial intelligence taking over the whole mortgage advisory process. So let's crack the code today. Before we dive right into the video, my name is Pradesh, your host of this episode of Let's Talk About Mortgages. And joining with me is Iftikhar Mohammed, who is a mortgage advisor and also an experienced accountant, and has been the best of both worlds for the past 10 plus years. Hi Ifti, it's really nice to join you again for another episode of Let's Talk About Mortgages in this scenic, beautiful view. How has the view affected you so far? How do you feel?
Okay, it's a beautiful place for sure, Pradesh. Lovely to be here, and thanks for welcoming me here as well. It's a nice place. Obviously, it's the beautiful Sri Lanka where you get, hideouts like this, which is really good. It's very calming, the environment. I would love to work in an environment like this as a mortgage broker because you feel much relaxed as well. Not that mortgage advisors are, always tense, but at the same time, it's always nice to work in an environment like this.
Certainly, I agree with you because with all of the rate changes in the market, there's a lot of volatility and a lot of frustrations as well from people because of the high mortgage interest rates, and managing your mortgage is definitely not, easy. And of course, a place like this will definitely relieve you from all of the pressure that you've been facing over the past couple of years, I should say.
Yeah.
So, going back to the basics, actually, I know we've been talking back and forth about the complexities of the mortgage industry, the different schemes, the different options available to a first-time buyer, homeowner, and whatnot. So, today we're talking about whether we actually need a mortgage broker. Now, imagine I'm just gonna imagine myself as a first-time buyer, or rather, put on the hat of a first-time buyer, and I can just go to a high street bank. I can just walk down the high street, go to a bank, and then probably discuss my circumstances with them and get a mortgage. I mean, that's kind of the impression that I have when I want to get a mortgage. But why exactly do you think we need a mortgage broker, Ifti?
Okay. Good question. Your thinking is not wrong, but it's not right either. A mortgage broker is somebody, their primary job is to get your mortgage offer. Now, like you said, if you walk into a bank, your bank, they might get you a mortgage offer. But is that the right offer is the question. So the job of the mortgage broker is to find you the right mortgage. So for example, if you go into your bank will only offer you the products that they have, because obviously they're not promoting anybody else. So they will only offer the products they have. So their products might not be the right product for you because, for example, there might be products which are cheap out there compared to what your bank is offering. And it may not 100% suit you as well because you might have, for example, some savings, right? Which you might want to use like an offset mortgage. But whereas your bank may not offer offset mortgage. So they might not offer you the right products as well. Now that's when the mortgage broker comes into play, because the mortgage broker will offer you, based on your circumstances, what they think is right to suit you. So in doing that, they will walk into any bank, right? So for example, if Y bank is the best for you, they'll suggest that because that's better suits your requirements. So that's the advantage you have going to a mortgage broker. But today the mortgage broker's role has changed as well because with mortgage brokers nowadays, like I said at the beginning, right, the interest rates have been just going up. So when it goes up, people like mortgage brokers, so for example, you're doing a remortgage, they will apply for the mortgage on your behalf. And if the rates come down, they will go and change it. So if they have to go from X bank to Y bank, they will do that. And again, if you have to go to the Z bank, the mortgage broker will do that, because that's a right mortgage broker. Everybody is supposed to do that, right? I'm not sure whether everybody does that, but that's the mortgage broker's job. Likewise, they'll keep you informed, right? So they'll say, okay, we are expecting interest rates to rise. So do you want to apply today? Because tomorrow the rate might change. But if you go to the bank, how proactive they're going to be is something you don't know. So that's where you find the advantage of a mortgage broker. But also mortgage brokers today, the role is very different. They don't offer just mortgage advice. They offer a holistic advice. What I mean by that is they look at things like insurance along with your mortgage, like life insurance, then the home insurance. Because they have access to all these providers, they will give you the best options to suit you. So that's why you have those advantages. Also, a lot of mortgage brokers, especially mortgage brokers like us, we have connections with solicitors, right? So if you want a solicitor, we might be able to get you. The right solicitor will vary based on your requirement, right? Because sometimes you have deposits sort of coming from your company, right? So if it's coming from the company, you might have to get a limited company mortgage. So if that's the case, there is solicitors who specialize in that. So nowadays, mortgage brokers offer that holistic advice. It's not restricted to just getting your mortgage offer. They talk to you about things like solicitors, they talk to you about insurance, they talk to you about home insurance, they also talk to you about things like surveys. They will give you all that. So that's the advantage you find going to a mortgage broker.
Okay, so from what you said, I understand that when you approach a mortgage broker, the options to you are quite endless because they have access to so many lenders, I'd rather say, rather than me going to each and every bank myself. I'd rather go to one place where that place itself offers me multiple options at the same time. So that's very convenient. Now, one other question I have is that will I get a special rate of interest if I go to a mortgage broker? Or am I just getting what is generally available out there to anyone who's looking for a mortgage?
Okay, good question. So usually what happens with mortgage brokers is they'll get you the best deal in the market. So that's kind of guaranteed, right? So if you go to a bank, like I said, a bank will give what they have. They won't give you, anything from outside. So that's the advantage you can look forward to if you go to a mortgage broker. But sometimes mortgage brokers get special deals, which may not be offered in the bank, right? Because they will be offering you the door rate. But mortgage brokers sometimes have something we call it specials. So there are specials that they introduce. Usually it's for a shorter period of time, which mortgage brokers have access to. So sometimes you do get better rates from mortgage brokers, even from the same bank. So you find that. So so there is always advantages discussing this with a mortgage broker.
Right. So I understand that, getting a mortgage can be a tedious process sometimes because it involves a lot of discussions and documentation and all of that. So will a mortgage broker be able to help me, or rather hold my hand throughout the process from A to Z? Because I need someone, I need to put out my stress onto someone else so that they can handle it. And I don't have to worry about it. So if that's the case, would a mortgage broker be able to do that for me?
Yeah, good question, Pradesh. Usually the mortgage broker's job is to get your mortgage offer. That's all, not do anything else. But again, mortgage brokers, their role has changed over a period of time. Now, for example, if you take a company like us, we will help clients with a lot of things, right? We'll give them options with solicitors. We'll also give them options to select surveyors, and we give them a lot of options with those things. But also, especially if you're a first-time buyer, you sometimes need that hand-holding because you've never done a mortgage before. You probably won't understand the technical jargon. So that's where the mortgage advisors come into play, and they help you, right? So I know some of my clients call me and say, look, the solicitor asked me this question. How do I answer that question, right? Now, when you ask the solicitor, they'll say, seek advice, right? But whereas, you as a first-time buyer, you're a layman, right? So you don't know a lot of things. So sometimes that's where the mortgage brokers come into play, where they are to hold your hand. Again, not all mortgage brokers will do that because it varies from mortgage broker to mortgage broker and the type of service they provide. But primarily, the mortgage broker's job is to get your mortgage offer. But this role has changed over a period of time. So companies like us, we offer more holistic advice. Be there for the client when they need you the most. So that's what our theme is. So I know there are other brokers who do that as well, but that's kind of where our role has changed.
So while the bird makes its beautiful sound,
I know.
I think we are very well integrated with nature today with a beautiful surrounding. So we can't say no to the sound of birds today.
So, yeah.
Interestingly, you also mentioned about insurance. Now, as a first-time buyer, I would not really want to care about insurance because in my head, insurance is more like a gimmick where companies are trying to sell you their product only so that they can benefit themselves, right? But to be very honest, I really don't know how it can help me out. And even if I really wanted it, I really wouldn't bother working on it until I actually get my mortgage offer. So, Ifti, can you please explain me as to why insurance is very important and when is it important during the process of getting a mortgage?
Okay. So let's look at two insurance. There's quite a lot of insurances you can talk about, but I'll talk about two main insurances. One is the home insurance. So if you're buying a property, generally the lender tells you that you need to have a home insurance in place, right? So that's compulsory for everybody. From the time you exchange your mortgage, you need to have the insurance in place because if there's any damage beyond that point, it's your responsibility, irrespective of whether you have the keys or not, right? So that's why that becomes very important. So obviously you need the insurance, but remember, all houses are not the same because there are some houses where, there's something quirky and not all insurance will offer you a insurance quote, right? So that's where the mortgage broker plays a big part because they can look around and see, which insurance company suits you best, right? So for example, thatch cottage, right? There are thatch cottages. Not all insurers will do it. And things like flooding. In certain areas have had a history of flooding. Not all insurers will do it. But if you leave it to the last minute, you might struggle to find that insurer will do it, right? So you probably want to get in touch about that as early as possible. Now let's look at the life insurance. Now life insurance is generally not compulsory, right? But I strongly recommend people getting one because I have seen the worst side of things. I've had clients who've died and, thank God they've had life insurance because their family hasn't had to worry about paying off the mortgage because the life insurance has given them money. So that's quite important that people have, even though it's not compulsory. Again, with life insurance, there can be questions, right? So I've had situations where, clients have had medical issues, right? So sometimes you think it's not medical issues, but it actually is medical issues because people say, okay, my blood pressure has gone up a little bit. So that little bit might be a concern for the insurer. So therefore, even things like this, you need to do it early enough because get everything in order. Even if your life insurance is not live, just before you exchange, just make sure it's ready because when you exchange. Because if you die after exchanging, even though you don't complete, your family is liable to pay off, and complete the mortgage, right? So that's the whole idea. So get your insurances in place early enough. That's sort of very important. Of course, there are things like critical illness, income protection. There are so many other insurances that you can get. But the important thing is home insurance is important. Life insurance is extremely important as well from my point of view. Obviously, I'm not saying you can discount everything else, but those are important as well. But get this in order early enough. That's something that the mortgage broker will do on your behalf.
Okay, so if I don't get an insurance and in case I pass away from doing a hike or something like that, of course, that will burden my family, isn't it? They'll have to pay for the mortgage. And in case, if my family members are not working, then of course...
Yeah, it'll be worse. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I think I now understand the importance of life insurance. Now, let's say I go for a mortgage with a mortgage broker and let's say I lock in a 2-year deal, for example. And after 2 years of that deal ending, do I have to move to another mortgage broker, or can I still stick to the same mortgage broker?
Yeah, usually, obviously, if you're not happy, change your mortgage broker. But if you're happy, why do you want to change it? Because obviously you know that they've done a good service for you. That's why you're happy. But usually mortgage brokers, generally, if you work with X will contact you closer to the time where your deal is finishing, and they'll tell you, look, your deal is finishing. Especially in times like this, it's very important where the interest rates are rising, because you probably want to fix your mortgage sooner rather than later. And some banks allow you to fix your mortgages 6 months in advance. So you can potentially apply 6 months before. Traditionally, clients used to wait till the last minute, right? They wait till the last month, last 2 months before they apply for a mortgage. But in this environment, it's very important that you apply early. And that's generally now become a role of the mortgage advisor, because the mortgage advisor keeps in touch with the client and they inform the client in advance, look, your mortgage is now due, or your remortgage is due. It's time for you to fix one, and the rates are rising. So that's where they play a big part nowadays, right? So the roles of a mortgage advisor has changed drastically over the last few years.
Okay, I understand that now. But also, now I also understand that my mortgage application is totally dependent upon the mortgage broker solely. But it's not like the mortgage application is guaranteed, meaning it may not come back positively all the time, because of course there are controllable and uncontrollable factors when submitting an application to a bank, because of course as a mortgage broker you're only an intermediary. The final decision is from the bank. So what are the things as a mortgage broker you can control and cannot control?
Okay. Any mortgage is subject to underwriting. So even though you think the mortgage will go through, underwriters look at it separately and independently. So there are certain things that, you don't think is a problem, but the bank may see that as a problem. For example, let's go back to one of my clients. So one of my clients had a problem with a particular bank 10 years ago. Now, if you look at what I have seen, it's not reflected in any of his credit files or anything like that. So that's something which I'm not aware of. So the bank sort of rejected his application, saying that, we are not happy with the client. And when we inquired why, the bank said, we can't disclose why. So when we spoke to the client, we realized that 10 years ago, the client had a problem with the bank. And because, he had some dispute. So they had put a black mark on him, which made it difficult to get a mortgage for him with that particular bank. So that's something we wouldn't know. So yes, mortgage brokers 95% of the time can guarantee you a mortgage based on their experience, but that 5% is totally down to the underwriters. But again, if you look at the other way around as well, so if you go to a bank direct, again, what the mortgage advisor in the bank, that's all they can see, because underwriter, end of the day, they are the ones who look at the application. So if they see something that the front office mortgage advisor looks at, that's totally different to what the underwriters see in the back end. So that's quite important. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned about underwriters, Ifti, so how exactly does the communication happen between an intermediary and the underwriter? Is it a direct communication between the two, or is there like a representative from the bank or a representative of the underwriter communicating with you on queries they may have on the application and answers that you may have to go back on? So
yeah. So underwriting is generally depends on the bank. So sometimes you directly communicate with the underwriters, but sometimes you communicate with the in-between party who communicates with the underwriter, because that's the way the banks are set up. So it really depends on the bank. But either way, directly or indirectly, you communicate with the underwriter, which is good, because there is always two-way communication, right? Because otherwise what the underwriter sees is the document set that you send. But if they have any questions, they can clarify through the mortgage broker, because that's the role that the mortgage broker plays, because they stay in between and answer those questions.
So how friendly are these underwriters?
Generally, they are okay. They are humans too. Obviously, banks have something called criteria. They'll want to make sure you stick to the criteria, and they'll want to make sure that your documents are in order and there's nothing fraudulent that's happening, right? So that's all they have to check. So generally, underwriters are quite friendly through my experience. So long as you stick to your rules, they don't have a problem.
Also, I just remember another point as you speak. I think one thing I've forgot to ask you about is these price comparison sites. If I have to mention, like there are websites like Money Supermarket where you can compare and all of that. So I mean, rather than approaching a mortgage broker, I might as well go on to Money Supermarket or any other price comparison website, see what deals are available for me. Put in the figures that they ask, and get the deals, right? So how do mortgage brokers work differently from that? Do they follow Money Supermarket as well when sourcing deals, or are they like separate systems? Like how is the differentiation like between these two?
Price comparison website is nothing but a sourcing engine. So what they do is they will see what deals are out there and they'll present it to you. So that's all they do. So let's say you want to borrow 100,000 and you say, okay, I need 100,000. They will present to you what products are out there, which is based on your sort of property value. What products you are, likely to have. But what's the difference between a Money Supermarket and going to a broker is the broker will tell you whether you'll actually qualify for that product. So for example, X Bank might have the cheapest deal, but let's say you need £10,000 more, but the comparison website will not actually tell you whether you can borrow that 10,000 more, because that only looks at the price and it'll give you what prices are out there, but it won't look at specific circumstances. So that's when the mortgage broker comes into play, because they will look at specific circumstances. So for example, let's say you're employed, right? Do you get overtime? Do you get commission? How often is the overtime paid? All that will play a big part to see whether you can get that mortgage you want. So that's something that a price comparison website doesn't do, and that's something that a broker does. So yes, so there's nothing wrong with price comparison website. To be honest, we ourselves in our website, we do have a price comparisons platform, right? So if you want, you can put those details and pick it up. But obviously, we put a sort of in small letters saying that you may or may not qualify for that product. But that's the role of us, to go and vet it and to see whether you actually do qualify for that product.
So price comparison websites are just a way of referencing or rather refer to rates, what rates are out there. They're not maybe customized to your circumstances, is what I understand from what you said. Right, so I can feel the sun coming out, and then
It's really nice today.
Yeah, it's a very nice weather and very calming and relaxing as well. But anyways, before we end our conversation, I think there's a little bit of buzz in the market on artificial intelligence and how it's going to take over the whole mortgage advisory process. And I think we have started seeing some lenders also integrating platforms like ChatGPT to their web chats and all of that. So how is artificial intelligence taking over the mortgage industry now?
Artificial intelligence can play a big part. So for example, let's go back to the price comparison sites, right? So price comparison sites will tell you, okay, these are the products out there. But if you incorporate artificial intelligence, they might be able to tell you based on your circumstances, these are the products that you can get. So artificial intelligence can definitely play a big part, right? And also, in things like answering frequently asked questions, right? So artificial intelligence can answer your questions. So those things can be, artificial intelligence can be used to answer those sort of questions. But the broker's role is slightly different, right? Because the broker is the one who qualifies. At the end of the day, artificial intelligence is nothing but a machine, but, they can give you the right solutions, but it will always have to be qualified by a broker, because that's the requirement, a legal requirement by the FCA, because FCA wants the broker to give it the advice end of the day, right? So even if the machine does the stuff, which is good, right? Because it will try and get it as accurate as possible, but it's the broker who has to do that final recommendation. So yes, artificial intelligence, like any industry, it's coming into the mortgage industry as well. But broker still has a role to play from what I understand.
So my next question to you, Ifti, is that as a home buyer or a homeowner trying to remortgage, what should I be looking into? What are the aspects of a mortgage broker should I be taking into consideration before or while approaching one?
Okay. First of all, see whether they are qualified, right? So a mortgage broker has to have a basic qualification to give you advice. The most common qualification is called CMAP. So just make sure they are qualified. Make sure they are in the FCA register, because if you're not in the FCA register, you're not supposed to be giving advice. So just make sure you're in the FCA register as well. But then look at other stuff as well. Just because you have a qualification and you're in the FCA register doesn't necessarily mean you're a good broker. Look at things like reviews. So for example, look at Google. Most companies are in Google these days, and people have option to write reviews once they've finished their mortgage. So look at the reviews. And look at third-party reviews as well, like Trustpilot, right? So, they're a third-party company who looks at reviews where people can write reviews as well. Look at those things, because those go a long way. Because if people are not satisfied with the service they get, people go and write bad stuff, right? But if they're satisfied, they'll always write good stuff. So you probably want to look at things like that as well. But today, like I said, the mortgage broker's role has changed. So mortgage broker is expected to give more holistic advice, right? So they'll probably want to look at things like insurances, and also companies like us, we give advice on things like pensions, right? So for example, the other day I looked at a client. They've got about 100,000 sitting in the bank account, but they don't have a pension plan. So, we can advise on things like that. Now, of course, being an accountant, sometimes it's worth looking at it from a tax point of view as well, right? Because there are sometimes opportunities for you to save on things like stamp duty, or save on tax. If you're a buy-to-let landlord, there might be options for you to save tax as well, right? So those are areas that you might want to look at. So that is offering holistic advice, right? So not just restricted to one angle. So that's something quite useful nowadays, because obviously people just don't want advice. They want proper advice and more holistic advice. So you probably want to look at a firm like that who offers you all those options.
So you mentioned that human touch is very important as much as artificial intelligence is involved in the home buying process. But I remember some time back, Google introduced this technology where if you want to make an order, not an order actually, like let's say you want to book a table for two, you basically ask Google to make it, and Google itself will call the restaurant, speak like a person. You won't really know that it's an artificial intelligence behind that whole conversation, right? So are we going to see that anytime soon in this space as well? When I say space, in the mortgage industry as well, will I be talking to Ifti in the flesh, or Ifti as a robotic voice who is probably mimicking your actual tone of speech? What are we looking at here?
I haven't sort of seen that in the marketplace as of now. But I know there's a lot of development happening in this space, right? So watch out for this space, because you might see those things coming in the mortgage space as well. There's a lot of development that's happening around artificial intelligence. So, mark my words, you might see some of these things coming out very soon.
That's interesting, Ifti. So hopefully we'll see some developments on that end as well. Maybe that can curtail the tedious process of buying a house. I'm very sure that with the help of a mortgage broker, it can still be easy. But with AI integrated, it'll be much more easier, I believe. So Ifti, thank you once again for joining this podcast. And I think that we have come to the end of a scenic episode of Let's Talk About Mortgages. Beautiful weather, shiny weather, I should say. And so with that, we'll be wrapping up this conversation. And for those of you who watch this video, thank you for making it to the end of this video, because of course there's a lot of nitty-gritty that we discussed in this video. If you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the notification bell icon so that you'll be notified on the latest and greatest of UK mortgages. If you have any questions or any thoughts about whatever we discussed in this video, please leave them down on the comment section below and we'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you would like to speak to us, who are not AI at the moment, you can call us on 0203 4111 986. If not, you can write to us on help@wismortgages.co.uk. Until then, this is Pradesh and Iftikhar signing off from WIS Mortgages, Accountancy and Insurance.